What's up, everyone? Tony from the Cold Case Project, back again. And today, what I want to run with you over is all content shared in these videos is readily available in any Google search. Now, with that said, I take this content, have it rewritten, and upon rewriting it, put it in these videos to spread the word on the thousands and thousands of cold cases of men and women throughout the United States that are just forgotten, and I give this platform to them so their cases and their stories can be told. Now, in addition to that, if you look down below in the description, you're going to see some brand new t-shirt and coffee cup designs I've actually gotten from a couple of my subscribers who have over the years have been giving me some awesome fan art. So with that said, I'm offering a 20% discount code down below if you check that out, and splitting proceeds with them because they are awesome. Been watching me for quite some time, and I definitely think they deserve to be rewarded for some of the work they do on top of being full-time employees also. So once again, if you have any recommendations or any suggestions, comment down below. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the video. Like, subscribe. I'm out. Peace.
It was a cold Monday night in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when 41-year-old Alidia Vaught vanished without a trace. January 19th, 2009, seemed like any other evening in the quiet, residential neighborhood of South New Haven Avenue, a block lined with modest single-family homes and whispering trees bare from winter. Inside one of those homes, Alidia was winding down her day. A certified nursing assistant with a solid reputation and a tight-knit circle of family, she had just returned from work and was preparing for bed. She lived with two of her three adult children, Emmanuel and Tiana, and had developed a routine that rarely deviated. The household was close and supportive, especially with Tiana in the final stages of pregnancy, ready to give birth to Alidia's first grandchild at any moment. At around 11 p.m., Alidia told her son Emmanuel that she was tired and heading to bed. Emmanuel was watching a basketball game in the living room. He acknowledged her without much thought. It was a regular, calm night. She turned on a small space heater in her bedroom, flicked on the television, and began settling in. That's what everyone assumed, another ordinary evening. But what happened next would spark a mystery that has now spanned more than a decade. Roughly 30 minutes later, around 11:30 p.m., Emmanuel heard Alidia's cell phone ring. He couldn't make out the details of the conversation, but it seemed short. Then, unexpectedly, Alidia left the house, wearing only her pajamas, a pair of house slippers, and a headscarf. She didn't announce where she was going, didn't take her purse, and didn't bring anything else with her. The TV and heater in her bedroom remained on. Most chillingly, she didn't lock the front door behind her. Emmanuel, glancing up from his game, caught a glimpse of his mother moving quickly through the door. She didn't say a word. He figured she had gone outside to take a call in private, or maybe to meet someone quickly. Perhaps she just needed some air. He didn't hear a car start, and no alarm bells rang in his mind. Yet when he checked a short while later, both his mother and her car were gone. He would never see her again. The next morning, concern began to grow, but slowly. Tiana woke up around 2 a.m. to use the bathroom and noticed her mother's television was still on in the bedroom. She assumed her mother had fallen asleep watching it. It wasn't until the sun came up and Alidia still hadn't returned home that worry began to set in. Tiana assumed that her mother must have gone straight to work at Tulsa Nursing Center for her 7 a.m. shift. Alidia had worked at the facility for more than 10 years. She was well-loved, dependable, and had never missed a shift without notifying her supervisor. Then came the first real red flag. Chris Smith, Alidia's boyfriend, called Tiana around 1 p.m. on Tuesday, asking if she'd seen or heard from her mom. He had tried to call Alidia multiple times since the previous night, but had been unable to reach her. Tiana was initially confused. Surely, her mother was just working a long shift. But when she called Tulsa Nursing Center check, she was told something shocking. Alidia hadn't shown up for work. No call. No message, just silence. Her phone, when called, went straight to voicemail. Tiana waited a few hours, trying to hold out hope that her mom would come home with a good explanation. But by nightfall, fear took hold. That evening, she contacted the Tulsa Police Department and reported her mother missing. Detective Marcus Harper of the Tulsa Police Department took the case. His first move was to interview everyone close to Althedia: family, friends, neighbors, co-workers. All confirmed the same thing. Althedia Vaught was not the kind of person to vanish on a whim. She was responsible, grounded, family-oriented. At 41, she'd lived a life full of struggle and resilience. She raised 3 children as a single mother and had created a life defined by caregiving, both at home and professionally. Her daughter was 9 months pregnant. Althedia had been overjoyed about becoming a grandmother. There was no chance she would voluntarily miss the birth. Detectives searched her bedroom. Nothing was disturbed. Her jewelry, items she wore daily, was placed neatly on her dresser. Her favorite sweater, her purse, her medications, everything was still at the house, except for one pair of pajamas, her house slippers, and her headscarf. That was it. In her car, a dark green 4-door, 1995 Infiniti J30 with Oklahoma license plate 804 ZPN. Tulsa police issued a BOLO alert for her vehicle and entered her name into national missing persons databases. Flyers began to circulate. Family members launched searches of their own. 4 days later, Tiana gave birth to a healthy baby boy, whom she named Stefan. But the joy of that moment was overcast by the hollow absence of Althedia. Her mother never came. She never even called. Then came the first lead. On January 24th, 5 days after Althedia vanished, her car was found in the parking garage of Hillcrest Medical Center, a hospital located about 10 minutes from her home. The car was locked, parked neatly in a spot on the 3rd level of the garage. There was no damage, no sign of a struggle, and no sign of Althedia. But there was one important clue: surveillance footage. Detective Harper pulled the security tapes from the garage. At approximately 11:55 p.m. on the night of January 19th, the very night Althedia went missing, a white 2003 Chevrolet extended cab pickup truck entered the garage. It parked somewhere off camera. Then, 35 minutes later, Althedia's Infiniti entered the garage and parked. Moments later, the white pickup truck exited the garage. Althedia's car remained behind and never moved again. The truck had a unique insignia, 3 black triangles, on both driver and passenger doors. Tulsa police released still images and asked the public for help identifying the vehicle. They made it clear that while the truck had not been officially linked to a crime, they needed to speak with the driver. But no one came forward. The truck and its mystery driver have never been identified. As the investigation deepened, detectives began to explore Althedia's personal life. Was she meeting someone that night? Was it a romantic rendezvous? A secret relationship? Her children were skeptical. While she had been dating Chris Smith, their relationship wasn't considered particularly volatile or problematic. Still, investigators looked into every possibility. Chris was questioned thoroughly and cleared. Phone records were analyzed. Texts were combed through. No evidence pointed to any individual. There was no clear digital footprint suggesting she had planned a meeting that night. Yet detectives theorized that the fact she left in her pajamas suggested familiarity with whoever she went to see. She likely thought she'd be back soon, that she didn't need to change clothes, that she could leave her heater and TV running. But she never came home. To this day, the Vaught family is haunted by the silence. There was no note, no farewell, no behavior leading up to that night suggesting distress, crisis, or escape. Everything about her disappearance felt abrupt, wrong, and ominous. Compounding their pain is the fact that in 1989, 20 years before Althedia vanished, her sister, Trina, was murdered in New York. That case remains unsolved. While authorities have found no evidence connecting the 2 incidents, the Vaught family has now lived with 2 decades of unanswered questions and 2 major tragedies. They believe Althedia was abducted, possibly murdered, possibly lured by someone she trusted. But they continue to hold out hope, clinging to the possibility that someday, somehow, she will come home. Alidia Vaught was more than a name in a police report. She was a caregiver, a mother, a woman who found joy in music and dancing, who lived for her children, and who couldn't wait to hold her first grandchild. Friends described her as magnetic, kind-hearted, and selfless. Co-workers said she had a calming presence and a dependable nature. Her children remember her as their rock, someone who always put others before herself. When she walked out that door on January 19th, 2009, she stepped into the unknown and never came back. As of today, Alidia Vaught has been missing for more than 16 years. Her case remains unsolved. No arrests have been made. No remains have been found. The white Chevrolet pickup truck with the triangle insignia has never been located. If you know anything about what happened to Alidia, no matter how small it seems, you're urged to contact the Tulsa Police Department at 918-596-1221. Because somewhere out there, someone knows the truth. On the evening of November 12, 1988, beneath the dark Oklahoma sky, the hum of trucks echoed along the Turner Turnpike near Chandler, Oklahoma. At mile marker 31, a highway rest stop sat quietly until a jarring discovery shattered the calm. An anonymous call came into authorities. A body had been found beside a phone booth. When the Oklahoma Highway Patrol arrived around 8 p.m., they confirmed the grim report. A man had been murdered, shot in the back at close range with a 12-gauge shotgun. Loose coins lay scattered around the body, a chilling sign of a robbery gone violently wrong. The victim was identified as 27-year-old Dwayne McCorkindale, a truck driver from Kansas City, Kansas. He was a husband, a father to twin daughters, and a man who had built his life around the open road. His rig was parked not far from where he lay, silent, unmoving, and loaded with parts destined for a General Motors plant in Oklahoma City. Dwayne had been on a routine haul from Detroit, one he'd made before. This run was supposed to be just another job. Instead, it would be his last. His wife, Joan McCorkindale, was left to grapple not only with unimaginable grief, but with the senselessness of his death. If he had been killed in an accident, she later said, I could have handled it a lot better. What haunted her most was the irony. Dwayne had been killed over money, when truckers notoriously carry little cash for their own safety. He died for what was likely no more than $25. Investigators quickly pieced together a timeline. Dwayne entered the turnpike earlier that evening and received a toll ticket, an important timestamp. From that entry point to the rest area where he was found, there were no stops. He drove straight through. Around 5:45 p.m., Dwayne had used his CB radio, his lifeline on the road, to tell fellow truckers he was pulling into the Chandler rest area to make a phone call home. Authorities believe this seemingly innocent broadcast may have sealed his fate. Someone may have been listening. According to Paul Renfro of the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, Dwayne was likely followed into the rest stop, where the killer was already waiting there. He approached the phone booth, pulled out coins, some of which were later found at the base of the booth, and was shot in the back, execution style. The blast killed him instantly. His wallet and keys were missing. His pockets had been rifled through. And that was it. The killer disappeared into the night with nothing but a few dollars and Dwayne's life. In the early days of the investigation, leads were scarce. Frustrated but determined, agents with the OSBI began placing notices in trucking magazines across the country. The response was swift. Calls started pouring in. Truckers reported sightings of a suspicious brown Ford Pinto equipped with a CB radio, possibly the same one that had picked up Dwayne's final transmission. Multiple drivers recalled a disturbing pattern. The Pinto's occupants seemed to be playing a dangerous game of cat and mouse, swerving toward 18-wheelers, attempting to run them off the road. In one chilling interaction, a trucker recalled confronting the Pinto's driver over the CB. The driver replied, "You don't know who you're messing with, good buddy. We'll drive any way we want." When warned that someone could get hurt, the voice on the other end sneered, "So, we already killed one trucker. We'll kill another if you stay in our way." Other truckers reported similar threats from the Pinto's occupants, who seemed to revel in intimidation and violence. Then came a crucial encounter one that might have put a face to the threat. A few weeks after Dwayne's murder, trucker Ed Heitkamp pulled into a rest stop for lunch. A young white woman approached him, strung out, shaky, and desperate. She asked if he had any drugs, then begged for money. Ed refused. When he turned to get a map to help her find her way to Alabama, where she claimed to be heading, she leaned her body halfway into his cab, still pleading. Moments later, a brown Pinto pulled up. The woman jumped down and fled toward it. They took off together, vanishing just like that. The very next day, just 13 miles down the road, Dwayne was gunned down. After seeing news reports of Dwayne's murder, Ed realized he may have narrowly escaped the same fate. He believes the woman's desperation, her need for a fix, might have led to a robbery attempt, or worse, if he had stepped out of his truck. The OSBI found the tip credible. The timing, the proximity, the description of the car had all aligned. The Pinto became the case's strongest lead. Witnesses described 3 individuals connected to the vehicle, a white male, a black male, and a white female, matching the group Ed encountered. The Pinto had an Oklahoma license plate and a rare feature for a compact car of its kind, a CB radio. While the identities of the occupants remain unknown, the theory is haunting. Dwayne may have been targeted after a CB broadcast, lured by a woman, then ambushed and killed for a few dollars and a thrill. Over the next few months, sightings of the Pinto came in from at least 6 states. In all, there were 10 credible reports of the car and its occupants harassing truckers, acting erratically at rest stops, or making disturbing threats. Still, investigators couldn't track them down. Then, in 1991, a possible break surfaced, but it only deepened the mystery. On July 10th, 1991, a woman known only by the alias Mercedes was murdered by her boyfriend, James McAlphin. Her real name has never been determined. She had lived under multiple false identities and was deeply involved in drugs and transient lifestyles. Before her death, she reportedly told others that she had lured truckers out of their cabs so her partner could rob them, and in at least one case, kill them. That case may have been Dwayne McCorkindale. Investigators noted that Mercedes bore a strong resemblance to the woman Ed Heitkamp encountered. McAlphin, too, fit the general description of one of the Pinto's male occupants. But with Mercedes dead and no concrete link to place her or McAlphin at the rest stop in Chandler, the case stalled once more. Her identity and any connection to Dwayne's death remained speculative. Years passed. Leads dried up. The family grieved. Joan raised their daughters alone. The twins grew up knowing their father only through photographs and the stories their mother shared. They see other kids with their daddies, she once said, and they ask where theirs is. She told them he was in heaven with Jesus. One day, she knew she would have to tell them the full truth, that their father was murdered in cold blood. Today, nearly 4 decades later, Dwayne McCorkindale's murder remains unsolved. His employer, Contractors Incorporated, once offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. That reward has gone unclaimed. Dwayne's father, Milford, died in 2013. His brother, Charles, passed in 2019. They died without ever knowing who was responsible or why. Somewhere out there, someone knows what happened that night in Chandler. Someone knows who was driving the brown Pinto, who held the shotgun, and who decided that a few dollars were worth a man's life. Until that person speaks, the case remains an open wound in the heart of the McCorkindale family, and a chilling reminder of how quickly the open road can turn deadly. Midwest City, Oklahoma, April 4th, 2015. The early days of April in Oklahoma are fickle, one moment cool and gray, the next touched by sunlight that hints at spring. On the afternoon of April 4th, 2015, Trang was out shopping with her mother in Midwest City. They wandered through one of the shopping centers that the city, a familiar outing, quiet and routine. The kind of ordinary Saturday that wouldn't be remembered at all if not for what followed. Trang was 28 years old, young, but mature beyond her years. Her mother noticed she seemed preoccupied that day, like something was weighing on her. At some point during their trip, Trang leaned over and said she needed to meet someone at 5 p.m. She didn't say who or where, just that she had to go. That was the last time anyone in her family saw her. To understand the fear that gripped Trang's loved ones in the days after she vanished, one needs to understand who she was. By all accounts, Trang was not someone who made impulsive decisions. She was private, deeply introverted, and deliberate in everything she did. Friend described her as warm but guarded. She kept her circle small and her thoughts closer still. A graduate of Del City High School and the University of Central Oklahoma, Trang was ambitious, intelligent, and responsible. She had a solid job, one that she took seriously. So when she didn't show up to work on April 5th, her employer immediately noticed. This wasn't just a missed shift, it was unheard of. Trang never missed work. She never failed to call. They tried to reach her, but there was no answer. On April 6th, after another unexplained absence, her employer called police. Oklahoma City Police went to Trang's apartment, located near Southwest 89th Street and Drexel Avenue. The complex was quiet, modest, just another grouping of brick units that could be anywhere in Middle America. Her white Nissan Versa was there, but something was off. The car was parked outside her building, but not in her usual spot. That was strange. Trang was a creature of habit. Her family later said she always parked in the same place. Police took note, but there was no visible damage to the car. No signs of a struggle. Inside the apartment, things were even more unsettling. Everything was in place. Her purse, her clothes, her shoes, her makeup, her wallet, her prenatal vitamins. Even her beloved pets were still inside. To police, this was a glaring red flag. If Trang had planned to leave for any extended period of time, why would she leave behind her animals, the creatures she considered family, and the prenatal vitamins? That raised even more questions. Her family didn't know she was pregnant. They were stunned. Quietly, police began considering the possibility that whatever happened to Trang Tran was more than just a disappearance. It might have been a cover-up. Over the following days, police worked quickly to retrace Trang's final steps. Her phone records were pulled. Security footage from local businesses was checked. But there were few digital breadcrumbs to follow. Trang wasn't active on social media. Her cell phone stopped pinging towers shortly after she was last seen. Her bank account had no unusual activity. She had, it appeared, simply vanished. The person she had told her mother she was meeting at 5 p.m. remains unknown. Whoever it was, they've never come forward. Trang didn't tell her mother if it was a man or a woman, a friend or a coworker. Just, I need to meet someone. Investigators believe that meeting may have been the last thing she ever did. Eventually, a name surfaced, Tyson. According to police and some secondhand reports, Trang may have been traveling or planning to meet a white male named Tyson. No one in her immediate circle knew who he was. Her family didn't recognize the name. Neither did her coworkers. Police circulated the detail in missing person bulletins, but the lead quickly dried up. If Tyson existed, he didn't want to be found. The name gave the case its first real suspect or witness. But there was no photograph, no full name, no known address, just a first name and the uneasy suspicion that Trang had been keeping parts of her life hidden from those who loved her. Hashtag, 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 a secret life? It's one of the hardest parts for families of missing persons to accept that there may be aspects of their loved one's life they never knew about. As investigators dug deeper, they began to ask, had Trang been in a secret relationship? Was the pregnancy unplanned? Could she have been considering adoption or facing pressure from someone else? And most disturbing of all, had someone close to her learned of the pregnancy and decided to silence her? There was no sign of forced entry at her apartment, no signs of a fight, no defensive wounds, no blood, but everything was too intact, like a stage that had been carefully set to appear normal. Yet something vital was missing. Her. From the beginning, detectives believed Trang Tran disappeared under suspicious circumstances. The quiet nature of her life, the lack of drama, the predictable schedule made it all the more eerie. She didn't use drugs. She wasn't in legal trouble. There was no history of mental illness. She had no reason to run. Yet she was gone. Some theories have emerged, domestic violence. If she was involved with someone secretly, someone who didn't want a child, the pregnancy could have triggered a violent confrontation. Coercion or abduction. Was she lured out of her apartment by someone she trusted, only to be taken elsewhere? Trafficking or foul play. Though there's no direct evidence, some worry she may have been trafficked or killed shortly after leaving her apartment. Without surveillance footage or witnesses, the case quickly ran into walls. Her phone offered no pings after April 4th. No body was found. No suspects were arrested. The silence, again, was deafening. As of now, Trang remains missing. The case remains open. And the question that haunts investigators and her family alike is painfully simple. How does a 28-year-old woman, 5 feet tall, just disappear? On the night of November 3rd, 2007, the autumn air hung heavy over the north side of Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was just before midnight when Angie Tucker, a 27-year-old single mother of 2, told her own mother she was stepping out briefly. She needed to get a pack of cigarettes. She said, something simple, something routine. She walked out the front door of the house near a patchy street in Yale Avenue, where she and her children had been staying. It was the last time anyone would ever see her. When Angie didn't return home that night, her mother waited up. At first, she assumed Angie had met up with a friend or maybe stopped somewhere longer than expected. But morning came, and Angie still hadn't come back. She hadn't called. She hadn't checked on her children. And that was entirely unlike her. Something was wrong. By all accounts, Angie Tucker was devoted to her children and committed to her job at the Oklahoma State University Medical Center. She didn't own a vehicle at the time and relied on friends, family, or her own 2 feet to get where she needed to go. She was known for being responsible, reliable, and stable. Her sudden disappearance didn't make sense. Even more disturbing, she vanished just weeks before she was set to testify in a rape trial, a case that could have sent her alleged attacker to prison. On October 6, 2007, almost a month before she vanished, Angie had reported a harrowing incident to police. She told authorities that Alan Shields, a former boyfriend, had broken into her apartment in the early morning hours while she was sleeping. According to her, she woke to find him inside, and then he assaulted her before fleeing. She filed charges, and Shields was arrested for burglary and the R word. Angie also quickly sought and was granted a protective order against him. But Shields posted bail the same day, and then he walked free. In a statement to police, Shields admitted to having sex with Angie, but claimed it was consensual. He denied breaking in and denied assaulting her. Angie was the only eyewitness. She was scheduled to testify against him in court until she vanished. After her disappearance, the case against Shields was dropped for lack of evidence. Without her testimony, prosecutors had little choice. Although there was no physical evidence tying Shields to Angie's disappearance, investigators quickly labeled him a person of interest. He denied involvement, insisting he had no idea what had happened to her. There was no body, no crime scene, no clear evidence, just a young mother, gone without a trace, and a man with a dark and growing record. In February 2010, Shields' name made headlines again, and this time, there was no ambiguity about the threat he posed. He was caught in his ex-girlfriend's home after breaking in and waiting for her and her 9-year-old daughter to return. Authorities described what they found with him as a kidnap murder kit, a chilling collection of items that included a handgun, handcuffs, a mask, drugs, pepper spray, and disinfectant wipes. He had waited inside for as long as 13 hours, hiding and waiting. When the woman returned with her daughter, he attacked her. Her daughter had the presence of mind to call police, and they arrived in time to prevent what authorities feared could have been a double murder. Shields was arrested and charged with 5 felonies, including kidnapping, assault, and burglary. But by June 2010, 4 of the 5 charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. In July, he pleaded guilty to felony assault and battery with a dangerous weapon and was sentenced to house arrest, a punishment that many felt was far too lenient given the threat he posed. Just months later, Shields was charged with conspiracy to commit murder in a murder-for-hire plot that had resulted in the death of Neil Sweeney, a well-known Tulsa businessman, in September 2008. According to investigators, Sweeney was killed in a murder-for-hire arranged by a group of men, including Shields and his brother, who had already been convicted in a separate homicide case. Shields eventually pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy and agreed to testify against the other 4 defendants. In exchange, he received 10 years of probation and was released from prison. In January 2011, police took a DNA sample from Shields in connection with yet another murder, the April 2008 killing of Frederick Anthony Wilson, who had been shot during a home invasion robbery. No charges were brought in that case, yet on April 4th, 2011, 4 years to the day after Trang vanished under suspicious circumstances in nearby Oklahoma City, Alan Shields reached the end of the road. He failed to appear for a scheduled court date. Police soon received information that he had taken a child hostage, the same young girl whose mother he had attacked the previous year. Officers raced to the home where the attack had occurred. A standoff ensued. That evening, Shields released the girl unharmed. Then, he turned the gun on himself and pulled the trigger. He died by suicide at the scene. With Shields dead, there would be no further answers, at least not from him. Angie Tucker's case grew cold again, though it never completely faded from memory. Investigators have never ruled out foul play, and those closest to Angie remain convinced that she did not leave voluntarily. She had 2 children she adored, a job she valued, and family she relied on. She vanished the same month she was expected to stand up in court against a man she said raped her. A man who later tried to abduct another woman and possibly plan a murder. A man who would rather die than face a courtroom again. To this day, Angie Tucker remains missing. Her children are now being raised by relatives. Her family continues to search for answers, but with the main suspect now dead, leads have become harder to come by. What happened to her after she left her mother's house that night in November 2007 remains one of Tulsa's most haunting unsolved mysteries. Someone, somewhere, knows more, and Angie Tucker deserves to be found. In June 2002, Logan Tucker was living in Woodward, Oklahoma, with his mother, Catherine Rutan, his younger brother Justin, and a roommate named Melody Lennington. Catherine had a complex personal history, including multiple marriages, and had previously reached out to child welfare services with concerns about parenting stress and Logan's behavior. Earlier that year, in April, the Oklahoma Department of Human Services briefly took custody of Logan and Justin after Catherine contacted a crisis hotline, saying she was afraid she might harm one of her children. However, the children were returned to her care just a few days later. Catherine described Logan to others as a danger to his younger brother and spoke frequently of his alleged behavioral problems. She said he had a history of setting fires, although there was no official evidence to support this claim. She told a witness that she was at her limit and feared she might have to act drastically if his behavior continued. In June, Catherine again sought help from DHS. She was told Logan could be admitted to a children's psychiatric facility, but not for 4 more days due to availability. She was reportedly upset about the delay. Despite Catherine's alarming characterizations, a DHS worker who met with Logan around that time described him as polite and well-mannered. The last confirmed sighting of Logan was on the night of June 22, 2002, when Melody Lennington said she put both boys to bed. She later woke up in the middle of the night and heard Logan crying, but went back to sleep. The next morning, she asked Catherine what had happened, and Catherine said Logan was sick and had been moved to the basement. Later that day, Catherine claimed DHS had picked Logan up early and that he would be placed with his biological father. However, DHS was not scheduled to retrieve Logan until the next day, and they confirmed they had not taken him. In the days that followed, witnesses noticed strange behavior from Catherine. She appeared calm about Logan's sudden absence, attempted to give away his belongings, and when asked about his whereabouts, gave inconsistent stories. At one point, she claimed Logan was with her brother, who later confirmed he had not seen the boy in over a year. Logan's maternal grandparents reported him missing on July 7th after receiving vague and conflicting information from Catherine. She refused to name any facility where Logan might be staying and turned down their offer to take custody of him. Police launched an investigation and, upon searching the home, found troubling evidence in the basement: bloodstains, candle wax, and tape containing hair. DNA testing later confirmed that the blood was Logan's. Investigators also discovered plastic sheeting and a shovel that Catherine had borrowed from her boyfriend under the pretense of gardening. No flowers were ever planted. Authorities found no record of Logan in any residential facility or under the care of anyone Catherine had named. In fact, she had even asked a friend to pretend to be her brother and falsely claim custody of Logan. The most significant testimony came from Justin, Logan's younger brother, who described a trip with their mother and Logan out to a rural area. According to Justin, Logan was unresponsive, and Catherine had taken plastic and a shovel into the woods. When she returned alone, she told Justin that Logan had gone to where bad boys go, warning him to behave or face the same fate. In September 2002, Catherine moved away from Woodward and did not report Logan missing or cooperate with the investigation. She was briefly jailed on unrelated charges and refused to take a polygraph when questioned about her son. Over time, a disturbing pattern of behavior emerged. Witnesses stated that Catherine had long expressed a desire to remove Logan from her life, while treating Justin with care and affection. Allegations surfaced about physical and emotional mistreatment, and several former partners testified that Catherine had made troubling remarks about her children in the past. In February 2006, Catherine Rutan was arrested and charged with first-degree murder in connection with Logan's disappearance. Although Logan's body was never found, prosecutors presented a strong circumstantial case. A key witness, a sanitation worker, testified that he had collected a heavy, plastic-wrapped suitcase on trash day that emitted a strong odor. A similar suitcase had recently gone missing from the home. In August 2007, after a brief jury deliberation, Catherine was convicted of first-degree murder. The jury recommended a sentence of life in prison without parole. Foul play is strongly suspected in Logan's disappearance, and he has never been found. Annette Craver Vale was last seen by her family on October 5, 1984, in Sulphur, Louisiana. Her husband, William Felix Vale Sr., who went by his middle name, Felix, told neighbors Annette had gone to visit friends in Denver, Colorado. She was never heard from again. Annette's mother, Mary Craver Rose, reported her missing on October 22nd. Felix told authorities Annette had been experiencing emotional distress and chose to leave voluntarily. He claimed she had taken a bus from St. Louis, Missouri, to Mexico. However, investigators later discovered the bus station he referenced didn't exist, and there has never been confirmation that Annette reached Mexico. In December 1984, just 2 months after Annette's disappearance, Felix filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and desertion. He also gave away all of Annette's belongings. Felix claimed she had talked about starting over elsewhere. Authorities were skeptical of Felix's version of events, but without clear evidence of foul play at the time, the case remained open but unresolved. Years later, Annette's case would take on new meaning as details about Felix's past began to emerge. Felix's first wife, Mary Horton Vale, died in 1962 after reportedly falling into Louisiana's Calcasieu River during a nighttime fishing trip. Felix said she accidentally fell while they were checking trot lines. However, questions quickly arose. Mary was known to be afraid of water, and the area of the river where she died wasn't typically used for trot lines. The tackle box that would have held them was found unopened. Felix was initially arrested but released after just 3 days. The case was never brought before a grand jury. Although he had taken out a life insurance policy on Mary worth $150,000, he only collected $10,000 due to suspicion surrounding her death. Decades later, a forensic pathologist reviewed the original autopsy and concluded there were signs of possible foul play, including unexplained bruises and a scarf found in Mary's mouth. The report suggested she may have been forcibly suffocated. Following Mary's death, Felix moved to California with their young son, Bill. In 1970, Felix became involved with a woman named Sharon Hensley. The couple was reportedly using illicit substances, and Felix's then 8-year-old son approached authorities, saying his father had exposed him to drugs and made concerning statements about his mother's death. Felix was arrested on charges related to drug possession and child endangerment. He served 6 months in jail, and Bill was sent to live with his maternal grandparents. Despite the disturbing allegations, no further legal action was taken regarding Mary's death at that time. In 1973, Sharon Hensley disappeared. According to Felix, she burned her identification documents and left to travel the world with a couple from Australia. She was never reported missing at the time and hasn't been seen since. Her disappearance wasn't officially documented until over 35 years later. Annette Craver first met Felix when she was just 15 years old and he was 44. They married 2 years later, shortly after Annette turned 17. Around that time, she became the beneficiary of nearly $98,000 in life insurance proceeds from her late father's estate. Not long after, the couple embarked on a cross-country motorcycle trip. When Annette returned home without Felix, she reportedly told her mother she wanted a divorce and needed space to recover emotionally. However, Felix soon followed her back. They reconciled, and Annette added him to the deed of her home. Later, she removed her own name, making him the sole owner. The couple reportedly used some of her inheritance to pay off debts, buy a car, and place money into savings. Felix later claimed Annette took a substantial amount of cash with her when she vanished. Despite her absence, Felix offered conflicting stories about her whereabouts. At one point, he told Annette's mother that she had contacted him from the jungle, where she was traveling with companions and had a child. At other times, he said he'd been in regular contact with her but provided no evidence to support these claims. Law enforcement eventually obtained Felix's diaries from the 1980s. They made no mention of any communications with Annette. The FBI launched an investigation into Felix in 1993, examining whether he might be connected to multiple unsolved cases. The odds of one individual losing 2 romantic partners to mysterious disappearances and another to a suspicious death raised serious concerns. Investigators interviewed a former girlfriend who described Felix as physically aggressive. She ultimately sought and was granted a restraining order. Though the FBI closed the investigation in 1994 without filing charges, the case wouldn't stay dormant forever. In 2009, Felix's son, Bill, passed away from cancer. Before his death, he recorded a statement about what he'd witnessed growing up and what he claimed Felix had told him about Mary's death. A former neighbor also came forward, recalling that Felix once said he'd harmed his wife due to an unexpected pregnancy. In 2012, journalist Jerry Mitchell of the Clarion Ledger reignited public interest by publishing a series of investigative articles. Soon after, authorities in Mississippi and Louisiana reopened the cases of Mary Vale, Sharon Hensley, and Annette Craver. When Mitchell attempted to interview Felix, he abruptly left town. He was arrested in Texas in 2013 and charged with Mary's murder. At trial, the prosecution presented testimony from 3 individuals who said Felix had admitted to causing Mary's death. 2 forensic experts reinforced the conclusion that her death was a homicide. In 2016, Felix Vale was convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. His conviction was upheld in 2018. In a later interview with KPLC-TV, Felix claimed both Hensley and Annette were alive and living in anonymity, but refused to elaborate, calling it the Felix Vale Witness Protection Program. Annette's mother, Mary Rose, held a memorial service for her daughter in 1997. To this day, the Tulsa Police Department continues to investigate Annette's disappearance. Due to the circumstances surrounding her case and the wider pattern of behavior associated with Felix Vale, foul play is strongly suspected.